So I want to begin this morning with the affirmation I invited you to repeat last week. I'm continuing a series on spiritual mastery. And so I'm inviting us to join together, maybe, and repeat this together. If you're willing, and only if you're willing, to claim your spiritual mastery. Only if you're willing. And so just check in with yourself. Am I willing to claim my spiritual mastery today? And if you are, we can't do this sitting. We have to stand. So I'm going to invite you to stand. And let's say this together. I am a spiritual master. I am awakening to my mastery. I am mastering my mastery. Take a breath. Let it out. Let's say it again. And only if you're willing. Together. I am a spiritual master. I am awakening to my mastery. I am mastering my mastery. Do you feel it? Do you really feel it? Are you smiling? Are you getting it? Are you receiving it? Are you connecting with it? Are you embodying it? Do you feel your body tingling as you say that? Let's say it again. I am a spiritual master. I am awakening to my mastery. I am mastering my mastery. Thank you. Please be seated. But only if you want to be. And so we are spiritual masters awakening to that. I thought about this week, maybe it should say, I am awakened to my mastery. But I realized that I'm not fully awakened yet. I am, but I haven't fully recognized it yet, right? We are all awakened masters, and yet it's sort of a process for me of awakening more fully to that truth and then demonstrating that truth in my life. What does that look like? And so for those of you who weren't here, just a brief recap of last week. The way I'm exploring this idea, and this doesn't seem to be working, so the 3 R's of spiritual mastery are recognition, which is a mind process, realization, which is a process of the spirit, and revelation, which is a process of embodying it, being it, acting as if you know that you are a spiritual master. And as I said last week, that they actually are better understood as recognition because you are not learning something new. You are recognizing a truth that you already know, a truth that is held within your being. As it says in Jeremiah, in those days I will be their God and they will be my people. I will write the truth, I will write my law on their hearts, and they will know that. And then Paul quotes that again in his letter to the Hebrews. You will know that, and you will realize that truth, right? As I said that last week, it's the real I, the knowing of who you are. You are a spiritual master. You are the I am that is. And so we have to take it from the head, from our understanding, my intellectual understanding, and really get it in our spirit, in our heart, to know it. To recognize who and what we truly are as spiritual masters walking this earth, walking this plane. And then, as Unity's 5th principle says, it's not enough to know the truth. It's not enough to know these principles. We must put them into action. We must put them into action through what we say, what we think, what we do in the world. One thing I really appreciate so much about Father Richard is the title of his center is the Center for Action and Contemplation. And action is first. That we have to act, we have to do, we have to embody that in the world, what we know, what we have learned, what we have reminded ourselves of, recognized, remembered and realized, right? Who am I? What am I? Who am I in the world? And who am I to be in the world? And so today, in honor of the 4th of July, I'm talking about freedom. And freedom from what? As I said earlier, freedom from the bondage of a limited idea of self, who we are. Who we think we are. But who we think we are most often is who we're not, who we have learned ourselves to be. And so we serve those ideas of ourselves, and we're actually in bondage to them because we create this idea of self that is not who we are. And to know real freedom, true freedom, is to remember who we are. As the master teacher Jesus said, you will know the truth if you stay in my way, if you follow my way, if you follow my path, the path that I'm laying out for you, then you will know the truth. Now remember, he says you will know the truth. And he says if you continue to follow what I'm teaching you, then you will know the truth. You know, very often we hear it said, the truth will set you free. Well, the truth will set you free if you know it. And that truth is that you are a divine expression. You are the one. You are the I am, the Christ. You are the Word that has been made flesh, as John's gospel says. You are that. You are a spiritual master, and you are awakening to that mastery. And you are choosing moment by moment to master that truth. At least that's what we are being invited into, what I am inviting myself into. And so this week, I was contemplating, well, what am I going to talk about? You know, some people plan their sermons, their talks 6 weeks in advance. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how people do that. Because I'm still trying to figure it out on Friday, sometimes on Saturday, sometimes on Sunday morning. Kind of being with what is happening, what's going to flow, what needs, not what I need to say, but what needs to be said through me. And so I was sitting, Jay and I went to Albuquerque, as I said earlier, I don't know if I said that, but we went to Albuquerque and to spend some time with Father Rohr. And so I was sitting in we rented this little place that we stayed, and so I was sitting there on Friday morning before we left, and I was frantically trying to figure out, what am I going to talk about on Sunday? Well, I was making some notes. What am I going to talk about? How am I going to put this all together? I had some ideas, but I had no idea how I was going to put it all together, and I'll tell you a little secret, I still don't. Sometimes I like to think it's like making a pie. You have all the ingredients, and you hope they're all going to come together, and you're going to have something that's tasty. But I can't guarantee that. So the idea was, sometimes I do that on Friday in my office. I'll sit down and things will come to me and I think, oh, it's so easy. But I was struggling. What am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk? Oh my gosh. And you know what I realized is that I was really getting into some fear. And that fear was that I wasn't going to have anything to talk about. Or that what I was going to talk about really wouldn't be coherent. Or it wouldn't make sense. And why was I worried about that? I really had to be with myself about that. What is this about for you, David? Why are you in such fear about what's going to happen on Sunday? It's only Friday. And what came to me was that I had gotten caught up in what I'm calling my me-dom. Not freedom, but me-dom. You know, the suffix dom really means a realm, or like kingdom is a realm, it is a state, it is a way of kind of being. When you say freedom, it's the state of being free. It's the consciousness of being free. Well, I wasn't in the state of freedom in that moment. I was in a state of me-dom. I was all about me. How is this going to affect me? What if I get up there and make a fool of myself? What if I don't make any sense? I was so caught up in my own ego attachment, in that moment that I was just feeling fear. And that's where our me-dom is founded. My me-dom is all about me. And when I'm all about me, what I think I need, what I think I want, my reputation, do people like me? Are people going to appreciate me? Are people going to walk out the door and say, oh, that was the best talk ever? Wow. I'm caught up in a lot of me-dom. And when I'm in my me-dom, my realm of me, I build walls to protect myself. I build walls that are based in fear, that keep me separate from you, that keep me separate from my understanding of God, that keep me separate from the world, really. One of the things I was so inspired about with Father Rohr is his commitment to being in the world like Jesus was in the world, serving people, meeting the needs of people, healing people, being out there in the world. But when I'm caught up in my me-dom, I'm not going to be out there in the world because I'm in the fear. And so I'm going to use a Baptist term here, maybe a couple of Baptist terms. In that moment, I was convicted of my sin. In that moment, I was convicted of my sin. Now, if that triggers anybody, just be with me for a moment. Because part of what the scripture I quoted earlier, Jesus says, when he's talking to the Jews, he's talking to the Jews who believe in him. When he says, if you stay in my path, you will know the truth, and that truth will set you free. And they responded to him, we are the descendants of Abraham. We have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean you're going to set us free? And Jesus said, anyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now, what is sin? In our way of thinking, in our way of understanding, in Unity's way of understanding the idea of sin, the very first primary sin is believing that you are separate from God. Having the belief, the thought that I am separate from God, that I am separate from the allness that God is. And so when I was in that moment, I was convicted in the moment that I was in my me-dom, walling myself off, trying to protect myself, trying to meet my ego-based needs in the moment, to be loved, to be admired, to be thought wise, all of those things that come up for me sometimes. And so in that moment, I realized that's what was going on. I was in my me-dom. I had separated myself from you, from God, from the source of all life, and I was sitting in fear. And so what do I do with that? Well, guess what the word is? Repent. Repent. And what does that really mean? It means to change your mind. It means to stop thinking that way and to change your mind. And sometimes that's easier said than done. So what I want to say about that in relationship to this idea of freedom is that, as Jesus said, knowing the truth will set us free, will free us from me-dom and deliver us to freedom. Knowing the truth of who I am, and a spiritual master knows that, and a spiritual master also knows that freedom exists in the moment. Coming back to the now. Coming back to what is happening in this moment. And so I was able then to stop and to recognize what was going on for me. As I've said previously, Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore said, self-awareness is a prelude to Christ consciousness. So being aware that I was in my medium was the first step. Being aware that I was in my fear was the first step. But then I think is what is important in our, again, going back to the revelation, the revelation of the idea that I am a spiritual master, is that spiritual masters also don't flog themselves. They don't punish themselves, right? How many of us, when we figure out that we're in fear, just add to the fear by beating ourselves down about being in fear? I don't think spiritual masters do that. How does a spiritual master respond? And so I ask the question. I'm in my spiritual mastery. I'm awakening to my spiritual mastery, and I am mastering my mastery. If I'm mastering my mastery, what does that mean in this moment? What does it mean to master my mastery when I recognize I'm in fear? And what came to me, it really means to be compassionate. A spiritual master is compassionate with themselves and with others. And so I was able to sit there and to just connect with, wow, I'm feeling fear. I'm in my medium, and I'm fearful. I'm concerned. I'm worried. And I gave myself compassion for that. Just to say to yourself, speak kindly to yourself. Just imagine that God, as you understand God, as love, is just holding you in love in that moment. And just like a beautiful grandmother would say, oh, sweetheart, what's going on? Are you feeling some fear? Are you worried? Are you concerned? And hold yourself in that love in the moment. Give yourself compassion in the moment. And then reconnect with that divine self. That is God expressing. That is the master. And then make a different choice. Make a different choice. Because what a spiritual master also knows is that you are the one you've been waiting for. There's no one else that's going to save you. The spiritual master knows that the truth sets you free. A spiritual master knows that freedom exists as a state of our eternal beingness. And a spiritual master knows that when I'm in my medium, I'm the only one that can set myself free. And I set myself free by choosing something different. By choosing to remember who I am. By choosing to remember that I am a spiritual master. I am an expression of God. I am the Christ in form. I am the Word made flesh. Realizing that at depth. And then allowing that to be revealed. Because in that is freedom, the realm of feeling unbounded, feeling unfettered, knowing that you are free, and you are free. I am free, I am free, I am free to be the life, the expression, the Christ of God that I am. You are free. When we choose to free ourselves from being bound up, from being bonded, in bondage to a limited idea of who we are. A limited idea of who we are. And what's really alive in me, I think, about that, especially after being with Father Aurora this weekend, is how much being in my medium I've allowed to limit me from truly being in the world, truly showing up in the world, to truly connecting. I talked about this last week, to connecting at a deep level with you and at a deep level with the world and serving the world, because it's not about me. It is not about me. I'm really beginning to realize that at my age, that it's not about me. That all of this fear that I carry around, all the ways I try to protect myself from being hurt, from being rejected, from somehow being, I don't know what the fears are, from not living fully. Isn't it interesting how we fear that we're not going to live life fully, and the fear of not living life fully keeps us from living life fully? Right? But you see, it's not about me, and it ultimately is not about you. Your life is not about you. My life is not about me. When we really get it, when we know who we are and we know whose we are, we really do, I believe, stop serving our personal self and really begin to serve in a meaningful way each other and the world. Because what I also know is that until all humanity knows freedom, none of us know freedom. Until we are all free, not one of us is free, truly. And so, as we claim our freedom, as we know our freedom individually, as I know that, that's so important for me to claim it, for me to know it. But what I do with that is not about me. And what I want to say about that is that I know that, I feel that, I know our oneness, and I also know I don't always live it. But again, being aware of it and being aware of when I'm not doing it is the first step to making a different choice. So, freedom is moving away from medium. Free to be the God that I am in the world and for the world. And so I encourage us all to explore that for ourselves. Where do I allow my medium to limit what I do, what I say, how I truly show up and be the life of God in the world? And am I willing to know who I am, to claim who I am, to know it's not about me, and to make a choice to truly be in the world?